Hi, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of the Double 18 podcast. I'm your host, Stephen Nagishi. Thanks for joining us on this Sunday afternoon. My thanks again to Joseph Yoon from Last Word on Sports, who was kind enough to join us a little bit early. We mentioned Varun Shankar from Washington Post was supposed to join us at 3 p.m. Eastern, but unfortunately, there was a bit of a mix-up. But he is kind enough to give us his 30 minutes to join us now. Varun, thanks for joining us today, and I hope, I appreciate you coming on. I know there was a bit of a mix-up, but I appreciate you coming on today. Thank you.
Totally my bad. I really appreciate you having me on.
No problem. All right, let's get to it. So your work as a Washington Post, you covered the Washington Bullets for the Washington Post, correct?
The Wizards now, but yes.
Okay, it is the Wizards. I apologize. I keep forgetting because it was the Bullets, the Wizards, and now the Bullets, and now it's back to the Wizards, correct?
No, I think they changed the name from Bullets to Wizards maybe like 03, something like that.
Yeah.
Like right before.
And I say that because, full disclosure, I was living in Washington, D.C. at the time.
Oh,
I
wow.
attended I went to, I studied a sports management master's program at George Washington University.
No way. I didn't know that.
Yes, sir. 20-some years ago.
Just a couple days ago, actually.
Oh, okay, good. That was a phenomenal time for me because it was shortly a year after 9/11 that I went to. And I lived in Alexandria at the time, and I didn't own a car, so I had to kind of like wait for the bus from the Pentagon station. And we all know what happened, during 9/11. It was surreal to see the Pentagon that was attacked and that was going through some constructions. I could see it from peeking from behind the bus stop where I was waiting for the bus to come. And it was an interesting time, but it was really a great time for me as well. So it was it was a really fun time for me. And the Wizards, of course, that was the year Michael Jordan, I think it was his last season in 02 and 03. They came very, very close to making the playoffs in his final year. Of course, Kwame Brown was a number one pick out of high school, out of a small town in Georgia. Really could never reach his full potential and everything. But it was a really interesting time living in Washington, D.C. at the time. But I wanted to kind of reach out and talk to you about your life as an NBA beat reporter. How long have you been a beat reporter right now?
This next year will be my second season.
Okay, and what were you doing before covering the?
I was interning with the Post, and then I was at Maryland as sports editor at the student paper, freelancing for a couple of publications, covering high school sports for the Post, and so on and so forth.
The University of Maryland.
Yes.
That's a very good journalism school.
It's fantastic.
Of course, none other than the most famous alum, of course, is the SVP Scott Van Pelt of ESPN there as well. Is John Feinstein also the esteemed alum, or is he involved in that before? The late John Feinstein, that is.
I don't know if Feinstein is an alum of Maryland. Let's see. Now he looks like he went to Duke.
Oh, okay. I apologize there, but he was heavily involved in the DC sports scene because
100%.
Right. Yeah, he was always a regular in the DC media area, of course, around that time with Tony Kornheiser and Michael Wilbon of the world, of course. But I'm very curious about the life of being an NBA a beat reporter because it looks on paper a really cool job. I think a lot of people who wants to work in the sports industry would love to be like a beat reporter of like a professional team of any kind, if you can get your hands to it. If you're a fan of your home team or something, that's even better. And I'm sure there is a perks that comes with it.
So you can't really be a fan as you're trying to cover the team, especially in my role, just because.
Of course.
Approaching with that objectivity is something. I mean, so I grew up as a Wizards fan, but once I took this job, you have to start slowly divorcing yourself, and the job helps do it for you in a lot of ways because it's just a totally different way of looking at the team when you're covering and than versus when you're
Right.
playing.
You get too emotionally attached, and unfortunately, the Wizards have had their ups and downs as a team, and we'll get to that in a little bit. But kind of give us through your life as a beat writer throughout the season. You write from whether at home or on the road, and there's a lot of road traveling involved as the team plays, game gets done. You write with a tight deadline and everything. What goes through your daily life as a as a beat reporter for an NBA team? Like, kind of give us through your from your perspective of daily life of being a beat reporter.
During the season, it really revolves around games and travel. You're
Mhm.
either covering a game or you're traveling to cover a game, and so you plan your life around that. On a game day, I'll usually try and get some work done in the morning, prepare a little for the next game, and then I'll get there around 4 p.m. or so. And I'm there probably until midnight or so. And then, the travel schedule is a travel schedule. You try and make sure that you're not traveling in a way that conflicts with the team's practice schedule. You try to make sure that you're able to make all your availabilities that way. And then when you're on the road, you really try and maximize the team's shoot around, which is something I also go to at home, I should say, which is, just their morning practice. You have to pull aside a player and a coach. And it's a good opportunity to just be around the team and, see how they're doing.
Mhm. Now that you are in the off season right now, what is the level of workload that you kind of go through right now as a beat reporter? Do you kind of like on hold right now, or is it basically you kind of like a roving reporter covering other sports until NBA picks up per se?
It's mostly just the season is a sprint, and this is kind of a relaxation, recovery period.
Mhm.
But I'm also on call for if the Wizards make a trade during the draft season. That's obviously a super busy time, free agency, and it's also a chance to work on some bigger projects, which is one of the things that I'm doing.
Let's talk about the Wizards, and this team has kind of been, uh, along with my Chicago Bulls, have been kind of occupying the lower end of the Eastern Conference, despite the historic nature and the great history and everything. But Alex Sarr was a top pick, obviously coming out of France, very raw. Obviously, not in comparison with Victor Wembanyama, which obviously has kind of helped, lead the French evolution into the NBA, as a top picks right now. When you look at the overall body work of Alex Sarr this past season, what stood out to you the most about him, and what is it that he still needs to work in order to claim, make himself, more complete NBA player moving forward?
Yeah, he had a pretty interesting rookie season, but there's still some room to grow. I think one of the biggest things that he's going to need to move on is just his overall efficiency. He was, pretty bad last season. I think he shot like 40% from the field or something like that. His percentage from three needs to go up. His aggressiveness and effectiveness around the rim needs to go up. And defensively, you'd also like to see him, overall, you'd just like to see him play with a little more physicality on that side of the ball, using some of his size and as a center playing with a little bit more aggressiveness down low.
Mm-hmm. And the offseason in the draft, the Washington Wizards picked Trey Johnson with their original first round pick out of Texas, 6'5" guard, averaged almost 20 points a game. What is your expectation from Johnson, and what role do you see him with the Wizards in this upcoming season?
Yeah, I think Johnson's probably going to be like the starting two guard for the Wizards. I think he'll play a decent amount. I think expectations from him I mean, it's hard to know exactly what to expect from rookies, but I think you'd like to see that the shot, which was his primary weapon in college and throughout his basketball career, to be honest, continues to be so in an effective way for him in the pros. And you'd also like to see some of that natural scoring ability he showed at Texas.
Mhm. And then with the other draft pick, I'm partial because I'm a diehard University of Illinois fan. Will Riley was drafted. That was actually like a trade pick from with Miami, if I'm not mistaken, or Utah, somewhere along that team there. I've seen enough of Will Riley this past year. He really started to emerge, um, as a second scorer or maybe as a top option per se to Kasparas Yakuchonis. What is your expectation on Riley as a somewhat of a raw rookie, but really hit the stride coming out of Canada with the fit with the Wizards this upcoming season?
Yeah, he's a pretty raw player. You can see that the physical tools are there, but he's. I mean, like Johnson, he's young, and I think he's actually a little bit further away, just because he's got a lot of weight to put on for his body to become an effective NBA player. And so, I would not be surprised if we saw him spend a decent amount of this season in the G League.
My guest today is Varun Shankar, who covers the Washington Wizards, not the Bullets. I made a mistake there. With the Washington Post in his second year, who just finished his second year being a beat writer for the Washington Post. Looking at the Washington Wizards at this upcoming season, Bilal Coulibaly, Keyshawn George, there are some really interesting young players that was drafted high. Coulibaly, of course, was another French player that came off of the team that was drafted in the lottery a couple of years ago, or I believe maybe a year ago. What are your expectations for these two young rookies? Coulibaly, of course, straight out of Europe, and George at least has 1 year of experience, I believe, playing at the University of Miami down there. What are your expectations for them this upcoming season based on what you saw in their this past year?
Yeah, so Bilal, this will be his third year.
Oh, my bad.
First year, he showed a lot of defensive aptitude. Second year, the Wizards tried to scale up his role as an on-ball player and didn't really work out the way they wanted to. I don't think he struggled a lot. The shot didn't come around, and it was a pretty up and down season for him. You'd like to see some better play for him this season, just because after the season, the Wizards will have the first chance he becomes extension eligible. So, you're starting to get to the point where he needs to show something if the Wizards are going to be able to pay him that second contract. And so, there's some there's some legitimate expectations placed on him. Keyshawn, though, is a player who looks to be ascending. He had a really strong rookie year, got better as the year went on, started racking up steals and blocks as the year went on. And then in summer league, he put up a little bit more of an showed more offensive aptitude, plays with a real good pace to his game with a lot of patience. So he's a player that I think that could have a really impressive second season.
One of the notable veterans on this team is Chris Middleton, coming over from the Bucks, who won a title there. What kind of a leadership do you expect from Middleton moving forward, and being a veteran, and then in a team that is very young and somewhat still raw there, but where does Middleton fit into the overall plans for the Wizards moving forward?
Yeah, I mean, he doesn't really have a long-term fit in the plans. This is a player whose contract expires after the season, and he's been a good veteran. I think he's been a good positive influence on the young players, but I would be really surprised if he's here after this season, just because it's late in his career. I don't know that he wants to spend it with a team that's not actively trying to win a lot of games. That might change after this year, but that's the kind of read I have right now.
So looking at the team right now on paper, let's say if the season were to start in about a month from now, based on what you saw and then the team that they have right now, what is the realistic goal for the Washington Wizards this upcoming season? Do they hope to sneak into the play-in, or do you feel like that's still maybe at least 1 or 2 years away from being a legitimate team for that?
So the Wizards' first round pick this upcoming season is going to go to the New York Knicks unless the Wizards land inside the top 8 of the draft. They are heavily incentivized to keep that pick, and I think they will keep that pick. It's just they want to continue accumulating young assets, and I don't think that they're going to compromise that, especially with the team that doesn't look to have a centerpiece right now. I think that There is a slight chance that if one of these young players takes a massive step forward, maybe Trey Johnson looks like a superstar from day one, maybe that changes the plans, but one of them would have to look really, really great, and it would have to happen in a real organic way for the team to consider not, keep trying to keep that pick.
Mhm. I remember when I was living in DC, the what was the what was back then known as the MCI Center was, the crown jewel of, the 7th Street and then the DC area. It was up and coming. And it was kind of like, as somebody who was studying sports management, it was kind of like an interesting time where teams were starting to build the arenas and stadium in within the downtown area, rather than it was back then, in the 60s 70s, it was in the suburbs where football and baseball stadiums were prevalent, used like the old Three Rivers Stadium and the Veterans Stadium, etc. And you could also say the same thing about Shea Stadium with the Jets and the Mets back then. I remember a couple of years ago there was a plan to maybe build a new arena, relocate to Virginia area with the both, the Commanders and etc. Oh, can you give us an idea as to where things stand right now with the arena, and maybe whether they're staying in DC or whether there is a possibility that they might relocate again down the road?
Yes, the Wizards and Capitals, I think 2 years ago at this point, reached an agreement or a non-binding agreement, it seemed like, with Virginia to build a stadium out there, and leave the MCI Center, which then was Verizon Center and now is the Capital One Center. That agreement fell through, and the Capitals are now going to stay at the Capital One Center, which got some money from the DC government to provide repairs, and so they're going to renovate that and stay there for the foreseeable future.
Okay. All right, let's look back at the NBA this past year. It was quite an interesting season, needless to say. Looking at the Lakers and their a huge trade with the Mavericks for Luka Doncic, for Anthony Davis, who's clearly getting up there in age, and then a draft pick that's who knows where it will be in a couple of years. What were your honest impression about when that trade happened, and the general reaction from the NBA media regarding that trade?
Could you repeat the question one more time?
Oh, I apologize. What was the your reaction as well as the NBA's media reaction regards to the Luka Doncic trade,
Mm.
where Mavs literally got basically very little in return, and I have friends who work in the Dallas media area, and I've lived that city for a couple of years too, and there's that emotional connection with from Dirk Nowitzki to the worthy successor and another European star in Doncic, and then they basically let him, go for free.
Yeah, it was a crazy day. I remember I was in a bar in Minneapolis right after the game. The Wizards played that night, and my phone started blowing up with people just being like, "Whoa, what's going on?" And
Exactly.
everyone thought Shams was hacked, all this stuff. So it was crazy.
Yeah. Um, when you look at the Mavericks right now, from literally the team that was where the fans literally hated everything about the team, the ownership, as well as the front office and Nico Harrison, to getting Cooper Flag, in a less than 2% chance of winning the lottery. You can kind of understand why the fans feel like the NBA is rigged, which obviously you cannot really prove at all. But your thoughts on Cooper Flag and his fit with the Mavericks, given what the Mavericks have right now on their roster, with the old Davis and then Kyrie Irving, who is still mending from Achilles and may not play most of the season at all right now.
Yeah, I think that it's hard to see the path for the Mavericks this year unless Kyrie comes back and looks like what he did before the injury, or at least a reasonable approximation. But having Cooper Flag there insulates them a little bit from some of the downsides of going all in this way with this older team. So he's a pretty good fit on any team he plays for. I think he's a pretty good fit there, and so it'll be interesting to see how it works out.
Staying at the Eastern Conference, which obviously you're very familiar with, the Knicks fired Tom Thibodeau, and it seems as though Thibodeau has great success at the expense of pissing off fan base as well as the media because of his so-called rotation per se. Uh, your thoughts on the Knicks as of right now, and did they made the wrong decision in firing Tom Thibodeau as well as hiring Mike Brown to replace him?
It's hard to say. I'd want to know what their thought process was if they thought that they had a different coach lined up. I think Mike Brown's a good coach. I don't know how much of an upgrade he is from Thibodeau. Maybe the having a different voice in the room is good enough, but it seems like a pretty lateral move. But maybe at this point in their team building process, they just needed a different voice in the room.
Boston Celtics. This team was a year removed from winning the title. Now Jason Tatum is out with an Achilles injury. There were chatters about maybe they were ready to move Jaylen Brown and others, et cetera, et cetera. What do you think about the Boston Celtics right now and their current situation with Jason Tatum expected to stay out pretty much the entire upcoming season, and with the uncertainty over the team sales and how they plan to build this team moving forward?
Yeah, so they lost Tatum, they lost Drew Holiday, they lost Kristaps Porzingis. It looks like it's going to be a gap year in a lot of ways for them as they wait for Tatum to come back. And it doesn't look like they're going to be a serious contender this next season.
And then I want to talk about my Chicago Bulls, and it seems like the Billy Donovan extension just really hit me hard, as well as the others, because it seems as though that 6 championships equity has been long gone, and it seems like this ownership is just basically going to tread waters, making the 9-10 seed and just play in the playing games, and basically that's all they care about. Kobe White's future is still very much up in the air. Josh Giddey is still unremained signed, and it seems like there aren't any teams looking to, come to him as well. What are your thoughts on this Bulls off season, and what their season could look like in this upcoming season?
Yeah, the Bulls are in a weird holding pattern
Yeah,
for the last few
very
years.
weird.
It's unclear how the Giddy situation is going to resolve itself, what his contract looks like. I think they probably I don't see a world where this is more than a 45, 46 win team. But I like Buzelis, I like Asenge. Maybe they outperform expectations, but it's hard to see the long term future for them.
I live in the Michigan state of Michigan, so Pistons is obviously a big story. They really came close to beating the Knicks. Unfortunately, they fell a little bit short in that first round. They have been unable to, add many big pieces, up until recently, because the Pistons weren't that good at all. What are your thoughts on the Pistons, the way they are right now, and can they make that big push with the Knicks changing coaches? The Celtics are kind of in a transition period. Can they get maybe like 2-3 seeds realistically this upcoming season?
I can see it. The East is pretty wide open, and I think they made some savvy moves during the offseason. Let's see what Asar looks like. Let's see what Ron Holland looks like. Let's see what Jalen Ivey looks like. They have some young talent that could be really intriguing. Cade's going to be Cade as long as he stays healthy. That gives them some level of floor, I think. But I thought they made some nice moves around the margins. I like the Duncan Robinson move, especially because the contract's not as prohibitive as it seems off top. Yeah, but if the young guys take a big step, it could be something interesting.
A couple more minutes with Varun Shankar, who is the Washington Wizards beat writer for the Washington Post. Moving over to the West, it's as hectic as usual. Let's start with the Lakers. What are your thoughts on LeBron James's future? Does he still stay, or do you feel like he's going to muscle his way out of the Lakers, given their overall, the way their team is constructed, and they might not be a championship contender, pretty far from it, I think, right now.
Yeah, I mean, it's tough to see what the path forward is with the Lakers. It's tough to see a path that includes LeBron James playing elsewhere next season. He opted in. He's under contract. I think he's probably going to stay under contract. And so, he's going to play the season. We'll see how it goes. I think I like some of the moves they made. I like the Laravia move. I think the Aiden move could work out for them, but it does not look like they're a championship team right now. It doesn't look like they're someone on the level of OKC, the Nuggets, who I thought had a revamped up season. So yeah, it's tough to see what the path forward looks like.
Where do you see LeBron ending up? I know there were some chatters about him in Dallas per se. I know if it has to be a trade of equal salary to match it up, right? If the trade were to be consumed.
Mostly, yes. It also has to be. I mean, I think the Lakers want the cap space. All the reporting seems to be that the Lakers want the cap space next offseason. So maybe I don't think they'd want to take back long-term salary, but yeah, simplifying a little bit here because the NBA salary cap structure is a bit, Byzantine, but they would need to take in some a similar amount of salary.
Mm-hmm. The Houston Rockets took a big swing and a big risk in getting Kevin Durant, who's been traded multiple times. It seems like almost every year, the last 4 or 5 years. I don't know if it's fair to say blockbuster given Durant's production and his age recently. He's had some injuries as well. Do you like the risk the Rockets are taking here, or do you feel like this is a risky move that will not pay dividends at the end?
I think it's a fine move for them. I think there is some level of risk involved, but he's a player who still has a lot of scoring ability, something they need, and it didn't cost them that much. I mean, the number 10 pick is a valuable asset. Dylan Brooks is a good player, but getting off the Jalen Green contract could be a plus for them down the line. So it's not a huge risk. And so, yeah, I think it's a worthy move to make.
Mm-hmm. How concerned are you with the Denver Nuggets? It seems like they fired Mike Malone with about a week or so left in the season. It seems as though, Jokic is kind of he is eligible for an extension, but what are your overall thoughts on the Nuggets this past year and their, is the title window still open for them?
Yeah, oh yeah, definitely. I think the moves they made this offseason were actually really good. I like the Michael Porter Jr., Cam Johnson swap. I like getting Bruce Brown on the bench. I think is really smart. Tim Hardaway Jr. is someone who could play some minutes for them, and I think that they insulated themselves a little bit more for the non-Jokic, non-Murray minutes than they did last season.
Mm-hmm. The Golden State Warriors. It's a funny team right now. Steph is getting up there. Draymond is still Draymond. Being loud and obnoxious as he can be at times. I want to say Golden State. I don't think that they're dropping out per se, but they're pretty maxed out contract wise with Steph and everybody else out there right now. Kuminga's future is still being discussed right now as an unrestricted free agent. What can Golden State do to stay relevant as a title contender, even though that window's slightly closing rapidly now?
It's hard to say. I mean, maybe they could parlay this Kuminga situation into something, but they don't seem to have a lot of leverage. It doesn't seem like they're going to get anything particularly spectacular back in a deal or a sign and trade. Maybe you bring him back and you find a way to reintegrate him into your team, but that too seems pretty unlikely at this point in time.
Mm-hmm. And finally, the Clippers, they've brought back Chris Paul into the mix again. Obviously he said he wanted to retire in Los Angeles. So this seems to be like maybe this is his final season up and coming. But do you like the Clippers, what they have done this offseason, or do you feel like the Clippers are just basically, I don't know, pushing the inevitable for another year before they, has to completely, destroy the team, blow up the team, I should say, and then maybe start from scratch again because, Harden's getting old and, Kawhi Leonard is obviously has had his series of injury history right there.
Yeah, they're definitely an old team, but I think it's a worthy old team. They're pretty deep now. I think they've got like 10 really solid rotation players. I like a lot of them. I love the Bradley Beal move for them. I love the Brook Lopez move for them. Chris Paul too. they're a team that is going to need a little bit of luck to contend at the higher echelon of the West, but I see no reason Toronto lose a fantastic coach. I see no reason that they can't get into the playoffs and maybe they get hot and something happens for them.
And I apologize, I forgot to include this team in the mix as well. The Timberwolves, Anthony Edwards is a budding star right now. What do you see as the Timberwolves moving forward? Can they take that next level with Anthony Edwards, or do you feel like what is missing from the Timberwolves from reaching the finals right now in Europe?
Yeah, I mean, who's the second reliable offensive player after Ant, right? Julius Randle had a really good season, but that was probably the best Julius Randle you're going to get, and it wasn't
Right.
enough. Does Rob Dillingham turn into that player? I don't know. Does Terrence Shannon Jr. turn into the player? Maybe. Yohan Berenger had a really nice summer league, but again, that's more on the defensive end than the offensive end. So how they figure out that equation is the next big question for them.
Well, Varun, thank you so much for your time. I know, you had other commitments, so I really appreciate you reaching out to me at the last minute, and I'm very glad that we were able to, squeeze in 30 minutes like you had requested. So
I appreciate it.
Hey, make sure to follow Varun on Twitter at by Varun Shankar on his great work with the Washington Post. Varun, thank you very much for your time, and hopefully we'll do this again at another time at your schedule, and I'll reach out to you for your availability again down the road.
Perfect. Thank you so much. Have a good one.
Have a great day. Thank you so much.